Hello and welcome to Dinosaur Man News and Reviews. I'm Andy Hughes. I'm here with Alex Hudson.
Big energy today.
Big energy. I surprised myself.
Not big dick energy.
No, tiny dick energy.
Small dick energy, but big energy.
Come with all the energy. I'm pent up with...
The advent of big dick energy as a term really passed me by. And the first time I heard it, I couldn't understand what I was supposed to be... Like... So, famously, one of the big examples of big dick energy is Pete Davidson.
Yeah.
Which just means you get the giggles during an SNL sketch. I think that's what big dick energy means.
But that's why me and my new energy company have found the only way
Big dick energy drink.
Renewable energy.
Oh, right. You went with actual energy rather than...
You've heard of windmills.
Yes, I have heard of windmills.
We attach an electric cable to Pete Davidson. He windmills.
Yeah.
And it charges our phones.
Is that...
It's about as much
Is that
as...
something you could approach him about, do you think?
Approach him?
Oh, he's
our
signed
spokesperson.
On. Okay.
Hey, Pete Davidson. Hey, it's me, Pete Davidson. Hey, Pete Davidson.
Okay. Didn't approve this new character.
Stop giving
Didn't approve this new guest.
Hey, it's me, I'm on SNL.
He should be wearing a mask.
Pete!
Put your mask on. Actually, you're already muffled enough.
But keep your pants off because we need that energy.
Please put your pants back on. Could you just cut a hole in the boxers and just put the penis through? I don't have to see the balls as well, do I?
Where's the fun in that?
A lot of cock talk at the beginning of this one.
It's like a Newton's cradle.
Is it? What, the balls?
Yeah, know how people feel calmed by
They're just clacking against each other.
Yeah. Know how like, a Newton's cradle, you have him in the office and you're like, oh, I feel so calm because he's a... We have to do the same for Pete Davidson's
So, like, the perpetual motion of his windmilling also powers his balls to clack against each other.
Swing in the wind.
Gross.
If this is someone's
My
first
laptop
episode...
went to sleep already.
I feel so sorry for whoever's, like, gone, oh, yeah, I want some good movie talk.
I'm gonna put a link on Big Dick Energy Forum to this website, this podcast.
I think everyone should tweet at Pete Davidson asking him whether he'll agree to.
No, I agree with none of this. I'm exhausted already. I used up all my energy early doors.
Mine was so high.
Early doors, break on through.
Don't know what that means, so yes. I'm guessing it's a reference to a Doors song. Yeah.
Anyway, we're back.
Welcome, guys, to the only podcast that talks about news.
This is going to be more structured than last week. Guaranteed.
Last week was a lot of fun.
Last week was an unorganized mess. And we've had written letters from the listeners.
I had a written letter from Mr. G. Zilla. Said, take my name out your dirty
Gareth
mouth.
Zilla.
We are the only podcast that talks news and reviews.
Sure.
This week, we're going to focus on movie news and movie reviews.
100%.
And we thought that would be fine for just this week. There's nothing been happening in the world anyway.
Well, it's not strictly just movie news and reviews, though, is it?
Some TV.
No, but the, what's it called? Gaming news.
There's that as well.
Speaking of, should we get to it?
Well, what are we reviewing today? Tell me that.
Yeah, okay, we should
do
that. So, we'll be reviewing Love and Monsters,
That's
Bad Trip,
That's also a film.
The Power,
Don't know that one.
Sound of Metal, Promising Young Woman, and Palm Springs.
Oh, okay, well...
What the fuck was that? Oh, okay, well, you turned into...
I turned
into a 90s cartoon character. You turned into a side character on Johnny Bravo.
I turned into Christopher Walken for a second. Or one of those, those musical instruments. It's just like a bit of metal that you move your hand close to. It goes...
Oh, come on now.
No, it's not called that.
Oh, my God.
Know that.
What the fuck? I'm annoyed at myself that this has now slipped my mind. I know exactly what you mean, and I know that theremin. There we go. Used heavily on, Beach Boys stuff.
Well,
Wow. The look I just got from you there of just like, you piece of shit. I don't understand where all this haterade's coming from.
I left a gap there. That silence was there so that all the audience would go, wow, great fact.
Well, you think they're not going to like it? What happened?
I kicked something.
You kicked a tin of biscuits.
I can tell you that tin is Sans biscuits because I ate them all.
So what's in the tin? What's in the tin?
The magic of cinema.
That's my Brad Pitt. Did you like it?
Before we talk those reviews, though.
What's in the tin?
Is he an Italian caricature?
What's in the tin? Gwyneth Paltrow's Goop biscuits.
It's okay. It's Mario. Guys, sketch.
No,
sketch
I
idea.
shouldn't
Guys.
have done this.
It's Mario, and
What?
he's got a question mark box.
Sketch. It's Mario.
got a
It's already been done.
He's got a question mark box, but he doesn't know what's inside the question mark box. Is it a fire flower? Is it a mushroom? He's like, what's in the box?
Yeah.
It's Princess Peach's head.
Right. So this is like for when they do another Wreck-It Ralph movie. Well, they're doing the Illumination one, aren't they, for Mario? Maybe this is actually it.
Sign me up.
They did also bring back Kevin Spacey, which was ill-advised.
Before we talk movie reviews, we must talk movie news. Before we talk that, let's go down this avenue that is gaming news.
Hey guys, this week's gaming news comes to us courtesy of Lad Bible because it seemed like the first one that I found. So, game. Whoa. Game news this week.
Wow.
Lord of the Rings game's been cancelled.
No. Not
So-
the Gollum one, though, interestingly.
No, so it looks like Amazon has cancelled plans for its online role-playing game based on the fantasy franchise. The Memorb, massively multiplayer online role-playing game.
Well done.
It says it here. I didn't read, I didn't know that.
I like to imagine you saw the letters and then worked it out in your own head.
Was announced. Yeah, okay. I would have instantly got all of them correct. Was announced back in 2019 by Amazon Game Studios. It was going to be a free-to-play adventure set in Middle-earth, as portrayed in the Lord of the Rings literary trilogy, rather than that piece of shit movie trilogy.
Yeah, so this is like, I saw somebody basically say this is like another nail in the coffin for Amazon Gaming Studios because they've tried a couple of times to try and get into that. Because obviously video games make huge amounts of money and Amazon likes making money.
So the game has been dropped due to a legal dispute. That's why this is cancelled. Lee Yu, who were working on the game for Amazon, were then acquired by Tencent Holdings in December. And when contract negotiations between Amazon and Tencent ensued, it then led to a disagreement. It was revealed by a source who spoke to the publication but asked to remain anonymous as they weren't permitted to speak publicly on the matter. Explained that after the takeover of Liu, we have been unable to secure terms to proceed with this title at this time. So
it's a shame because I think Middle-earth has a lot of stuff that you can do in a gaming, like Shadow of War, Shadow of Mordor. I think there are problems with Shadow of War, but they are a lot of fun, and it's a lot of fun playing that game. I think it's War in the North. I played on the Xbox 360. Really enjoyed that. Had a lot of fun with it. And that was basically you just playing another story within this kind of around the same time. I think you were playing like a war that happens during Lord of the Rings. There's a lot of really cool stuff you can do there. And I just feel like they're missing the boat by not doing it.
people have already got other nerd stuff to concentrate on.
True.
Skyrim is this. There's another Skyrim coming out.
True. Shall we pivot into... I don't know if you've got anything else to say, but pivot into...
I barely had that to say.
Into another story about Amazon and Lord of the Rings. I don't know whether I put it on the list. I don't think I did, but...
I ain't seeing it here, bro.
Did you see the news this week about the cost of Amazon's Lord of the Rings series?
No.
Is around about, if I remember rightly, 450 million for the series. The entire cost of the Lord of the Rings movies was about 300 and something, like for all three. As somebody who likes Lord of the Rings...
Not adjusted for inflation.
never adjust for inflation.
But it's important.
We never.
It's important to note that costs would have gone up exponentially over time. Yeah. Okay.
Never. As somebody,
I don't know what's going on this episode.
This is my new character. It's the man who doesn't believe in inflation. He's at a balloon factory. He's just
I don't okay any of these characters.
He's at the balloon factory.
We really need to start having pre-podcast meetings about introducing new characters to the franchise.
Where did the balloon come from?
Oh my god. Okay. What balloon?
He's the man who doesn't believe in inflation.
Oh, okay. So, like, the concept of inflation...
All of it.
Whether it's referring to inflation in a financial sense or inflation of deflated objects. Mm-hmm. So what, like, I guess, like, hot air balloons...
just exist.
And what does he think when they're deflating?
Dying.
They're dying. Yes. And then, what, they're reborn the next day?
He believes in reincarnation.
But only of balloons. He's not like a Buddhist.
Yes.
Okay. Anyway,
you
said something about as someone who knows or likes Lord of the Rings, right?
So you are probably the most knowledgeable person I know on Lord of the Rings. I think that's fair to say.
I think Barrett might have me beaten. Maybe. I don't know.
You knew what the spider's lair was called or something.
Yeah, well, that's just because I'm a fucking weirdo who retains that kind of information. But go ahead, what?
Are you, A...
gonna watch this series? No.
Interested in a series that explores that? B, if you were interested, what would you actually want this to do? Because for you, do those films do what they're supposed to do, which is give you those 3 stories?
Yeah.
What more do you want?
None.
This was made for you.
No, leave it alone. I don't want it.
They said.
Sorry.
In the press release.
Sorry, you said.
This is for Alex Hudson.
You said put yourself in the shoes of someone who actually is interested and going to watch this. Okay,
as somebody who
hang on, I've got to get into character.
Oh no,
I believe in inflation. Okay. I believe this guy is a big fan of Lord of the Rings. Okay. So, as someone who is excited for this series in this character, what do I want it to do?
Like, what would you... So, where do you think they can go with this series? Is basically the question. You have more insight into this world than I do, because I read The Hobbit once and tried reading the first pages of Lord of the Rings and failed.
I don't have that much knowledge.
Oh no.
I'm telling you this
I've
now.
completely misjudged your knowledge base.
I know that there's a bit after the end of Return of the King. Well, not after the end of the Return of the King, but like...
Which ending?
It might have actually been in the extended Return of the King, but I never watched it, I don't think. That Saruman ends up... So Christopher Lee ends up going to the Shire and sort of ruling that with an iron fist while they're away finishing up the job.
Really?
Yeah. And
I want that.
I don't know if that was explored in the extended edition. But maybe that would be fun. I mean, Christopher Lee's dead, so you're going to have to recast. You've still got Brad Dourif around, so you can still be Wormtongue. People like hobbits.
I want that.
People like hobbits enough, right?
Just hobbits being ruled over.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what the detail of it is, other than, like, I think he's a bit of a dick to them. I can't remember if he has any Uruk-hai.
Because I don't know any of the extended stuff. It's a bit like Star Wars, where I know the films because I've seen the films.
Yeah.
I don't know any of the extended stuff. And I kind of like exploring
But remember,
the
there isn't that much extended stuff for The Lord of the Rings. You've got the Silmarillion, which was the sort of compilation of, like, drawings of maps and sort of poems and stuff. But there isn't actually all that much that was written.
So do you think it becomes a case of this series then is people's interpretation of stories that could exist within that world?
Probably.
Do you want that?
I couldn't give a shit. I'm not going to watch it.
I'll watch it.
No, you're not. Why are you going to watch it? You don't care. You care. I mean, I think I now care less than you care, which is astonishing because I thought you cared less than I did.
Because it's a new thing.
Neither of us are going to watch it.
Like, I have seen...
It's got good people in it, but like, I don't give a shit.
I've seen Fellowship of the Rings once.
Uh-huh.
And I've seen Return of the King once.
Yeah. You've seen more Hobbits than I have.
Didn't you watch them all?
Nope. Didn't watch whatever that third one was called.
there's some great moments in that. There's a bit where Legolas is running off a building that is slowly falling down, and he skips and hops up some steps that are falling through the air. Does
he not do that in the Lord of the Rings series as well? I feel
probably.
like that's a thing that he does there. Oh no, he invents skateboarding. Doesn't he? He rides down on a shield down some steps. A shield,
and then like an orc is on the phone. He's like,
Tony,
it's your cousin.
Urukai. And you know that sound you've been looking for? Listen to this.
The extreme sport you've been looking for.
All I can hear is a battle orc hawk. It doesn't really translate. I mean, also, where do you get the telephone from? Little tin can on a string, straight to California. From Helm's Deep to California.
Tony Hawk, you are getting a collect call from Mordor.
And we were worried we didn't have enough news this week.
What else do you...
Okay. So, Saw X is in active development. This has come from the latest issue of Production Weekly, which has listed Saw X as being in active development. People noticed that James Wan's Atomic Monster was listed as one of the film's producers. However, that is a mistake and was misprinted there. James Wan is not going to be involved as an active participant. He'll have a producer credit, as he has with pretty much all of them, I think, so far, I believe.
So we spoke about this.
But this is not necessarily going to be linked to forthcoming Spiral. This is thought to be potentially a return to the mainline franchise, although this one is also in the mainline franchise, and no one really understands anything about this anymore.
We spoke a couple of weeks ago when we talked about Spiral from the Book of Saw, that, you know, do we actually need Saw films anymore?
I don't understand.
Apparently...
Well, we didn't, and then 2017, 2018, they brought it back, and I don't know if anyone cared.
So you
cared enough to get a sequel called Saw from the Book of Spiral.
So you'll be watching this one?
Spiral.
And Saw
X.
Yeah.
It might not happen. It's in active development, but that could be pulled at any point.
What if it's him going against another horror movie kind of monster?
What, like, hang on. What do you mean? What if it's him? Who do you mean by him? Saw?
The little doll on the bike.
The doll on the bike.
Yeah.
Do I think that a doll on a bike...
versus Chucky.
So a doll on a bike versus a doll not on a bike. Well, then doll on a bike wins.
Dolls at war.
Because he's more mobile. Well, technically he doesn't win because he's not an active doll. He's just like a...
So...
he's a puppet.
The puppet's in a storage container, right? That storage container is struck by lightning. That lightning...
This is basically what happens in Child's Play. You know that. So, Brad Dourif... Wormtongue himself is on the run from the cops.
Yeah.
Which then gets retconned later on in the series, I'm pretty sure. But he's on the run from the cops, and he runs into a toy store, and he falls onto a Chucky doll, and he does a voodoo spell that transplants his consciousness into the thing, and then lightning strikes the toy store's very ornate ceiling, from what I remember. I think glass shatters all around them. It's that kind of thing that happens in movies. And then he's... same
thing, but it's Saw this time. Like, it's a little doll.
But Brad Dourif does it.
Oh, it's still Brad Dourif,
It's Charles Lee Ray's spirit inside him again. So it's Chucky, but Chucky looks different. Is that what you mean? Or it's not Chucky?
And has to fight Chucky.
Mm.
Because Chucky's like, this town's big enough for one murderous doll.
Yeah.
But, like, the one on the bike, he can put, like, bear traps around people's faces and stuff.
Sure. But, like, I didn't think that the Saw doll was commercially available. Whereas the good guy dolls that are Chucky are actually, like, within that universe, they are.
Maybe it's a universe where everyone's now really cool with Jigsaw, and they're like, oh, I want my own Saw
doll.
Like...
Or, like, it's a secondary universe where Jigsaw exists as a series, or Saw exists as a series of films, like in real life.
Yeah.
And you can buy the puppet. I mean, I guess it's just this world, because I'm sure you can buy a puppet of Billy the Puppet.
I don't want to see this film, by the way.
Which one? Saw X?
Or
the one
Spiral?
Oh, right, okay. No, neither do I. It sounds awful.
If you want to sign me up for the writer's room, I'm
Okay.
readily available and cheap.
If they go ahead with it, I'm sure they will. Okay, so some relatively big news is that Sony have agreed a deal with Netflix, where Netflix will now be getting a first look deal for streaming releases of their films. So it's a 5-year exclusive pay TV window deal with Netflix for the US rights to its theatrical films beginning in 2022. So this essentially means that once a film has been released in theaters and then also on VOD or whatever it is, streaming rights will then be given first look at. Netflix will have first refusal at all streaming rights to it.
So this is probably explaining why Sony don't have their own kind of streaming platform.
Well, it's not explaining why, but it's what they're doing to counteract that, because I think they've been paid $1 billion for this by Netflix. So
Netflix spending all that money.
So let's see. Agreement will see films like next year's Morbius, Uncharted, Bullet Train, and the sequel to the Oscar-winning Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse head to the streaming giant after the home entertainment window closes, often 18 months after a film's release in theaters. So, I mean, there's a good point that's been raised in some of the conversation around this, in that Netflix have a lower customer retention number than Disney Plus do, and it's because outside of kids' films, there isn't a lot of replay value in feature films.
Yeah.
Which is why they've been pushing towards making things like Stranger Things more of a thing, because they realise that series don't necessarily get repeat viewings, but what they do is if you can say, oh, we're going to release a series every year of your favourite whatever, then it's easier to sell that and retain your customers that way, because actually they noted that their retention levels were worse for Netflix on the basis of people saying, oh, well, they don't have enough in terms of new films coming on that I'm interested in or that I would rewatch. Whereas, say, Disney Plus, you've got all the Disney animations, you've got the Pixar movies, so you've got a lot of kid-focused stuff. That means that customer retention's easier to do because you get a lot of replayability from those films that you don't necessarily get from, I don't know, Message to the King. Just to pull a film out of the hat there. So, yeah, I mean, this effectively seems to end Sony's relationship with Starz, which they've had since 2006 as being their pay TV outlet. So
Starz, someone was always going to lose.
Yeah, I mean,
and it had to be Starz.
Starz is owned by Lionsgate, and I mean, Lionsgate are a studio that's got just very strange stuff. The Saw stuff is theirs, and Saw basically, I believe, saved them from bankruptcy at the early part of the millennium. But it means that Starz are sort of losing a big thing that they've had for 15 years now. So, who knows? I couldn't care less anymore. There's too much of this now. There's too many streaming services.
There are. And
just have one. Call it Disney Plus. Sure.
Keep up to date with all.
What's Netflix now? £25?
I don't know.
£100?
I give my brother £5 and I've got a login.
Give him £10, see if you get 2.
I don't know how much the login is, but I give him money and my Netflix still works.
Anyway, trailer. Let's talk about trailer.
Trailer.
F9. For 9.
Yes.
For 9 and the Fininius. So this is the 10th edition of the Fast and Furious franchise, technically, because it is Fast and Furious presents Hobbs and Shaw. So we are counting that as part of the FF Fast.
We call it the Fast family.
Fatuf CU. So this is the return of the sort of mainline story, focused around... Okay, I was wrong when I said F9. It's not just F9, it's also known as F9, The Fast Saga, or Fast and Furious 9.
Yeah.
I will call it F9 and the Furious.
Well, I know that everyone wants the 10th one to be called Fast 10 Your Seatbelts.
That's good.
Yeah. That's not an original composition by me.
Okay.
I have stolen that from lots of more funny people.
Says here, Vin Diesel's just tweeted, I've just thought of Fast 10 Your Seatbelts. We gotta make this movie happen, family.
So, number 9.
Should I tell you what I believe happens from the trailer?
Yes.
Well, I think that Ludacris is going to space.
Apparently.
And Dom doesn't turn his back on family this time.
He turns his back to protect family?
Instead, his family turns his back on him because his brother is John Cena.
So me and your brother were talking about this yesterday, this trailer, and made you... Well, we didn't make you go and watch it.
No, I was more interested in the idea of the space aspect.
But yeah, it looks like they're going to space. There's magnets now.
There's magnets now. There's magnets now. Everyone loved that line from Rise of Skywalker. Yeah, a lot of big magnets.
A lot of
cars flying through shops.
It's going to be fun. John Cena punching Vin Diesel.
Yeah.
Vin Diesel punching John Cena.
Well, you'd hope so.
Charlize Theron.
You know when Jesus said, turn the other cheek? Vin Diesel ain't listening to Jesus.
He turned it so he could punch it. Yeah. Charlize Theron, she's got a little bowl cut.
Yeah, she looks like me in the 90s.
She's staring anonymously all the time.
Helen Mirren's back.
Yeah, she's driving and police cars are crashing.
She gets Vin Diesel to do the handbrake for her. Which I think is like code for they have sex.
Natalie Emmanuel,
just
she can't drive.
Handle my handbrake, if you will. Gross. I don't want to think about those two getting all...
You're awful. You're a bad person.
Well, it's rated R. It says for handbrake-related sexual movements.
There's a bit where I'm convinced, they cut it off just before.
Yeah.
I'm convinced Vin Diesel takes out a stealth jet with a truck.
Yeah, it looked like it.
Well, he rolls out of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm going to have a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think this might be your film of the year.
I can't wait. I
think it's between this and Kong Skull Island. Sorry, what's it called? Godzilla vs. Kong.
Fate of the Furious.
Mm-hmm.
So Fast 7, I think, is probably the high watermark in this series of just being like... And I think that comes with a lot of kind of what happened in that film and the kind of...
Which is good because Justin Lin's back for this one.
And I think that's your high watermark.
Mm-hmm.
I think Fate of the Furious kind of went, okay, we're going to be Justice City, and there are moments in that that are ridiculous. But I watched it again.
Is that the submarine one?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched it again recently, like last year or the year before.
Mm-hmm.
And I really enjoyed it still. I still had a lot of fun.
Mm.
And I think this is very much a case of just being like, we know that these are stupid films.
Yeah.
But if you're willing to go along with that, then it's fine. Mm-hmm. And I am. So I think that I might have a lot of fun.
Good.
And Ludacris goes to space.
In like a car wrapped in tinfoil, as far as I could work out.
Him and Tyrese go to space.
And that's how they get their spin-off franchise. Tyrese and Ludacris in space. I don't know character names. I've never seen one of these films.
I have no idea what their character names are. I've seen all of them.
But you know who Dom Toretto is.
I think you'll find his name is Mr. Family.
True. So this is coming out on the 25th of June.
Yeah, so it was pushed back
in the
like
US,
a year
at
and a
least.
bit, wasn't it?
Yeah, so it's been pushed back. It was originally due to premiere in April 2020 and then got pushed back for a year and then pushed back a little bit further and then moved back up again, I'm pretty sure. So, that'll be that. I can't wait. It looks great. I won't see it, but it looks great. All of the people are in it again.
Yep.
All the regulars, even people who you thought were dead.
Yeah, what's he doing back?
Hey, it says here he's in it, and I'm presuming it's the guy from the trailer. So, that'll be that. You'll see it, and you'll love it.
Yeah,
It'll be your film of the year. Interesting. Interesting fact. I've just seen. This is the
Oh,
trivia.
no, guys, get ready for that.
So
interesting fact.
Charlize is back. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the first Fast and Furious film to have the same antagonist as its predecessor.
There you go.
Isn't that insane? They've been switching it up all this time. Then they finally found one who they could just do different haircuts on.
Although technically that isn't the case. Well, no, it is, but it
get ready
isn't.
for this. Get ready for this fun fact, guys.
Well, it is, but it isn't. But it's. We'll talk about that another day.
I don't want to talk about it ever again.
Well, we've got a Fast and
I
the Furious.
barely want to talk about this film when it gets released.
We've got a Fast and the Furious episode planned at some point.
Have we?
Yes, we've talked about this.
Okay, sure we have. Yeah, but that was for when the 10th one comes out and we put on seatbelts and we
Go to
can't
space.
move. Okay. So, should we just get to reviews?
Shall we start with super special segment?
Oh, shit. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, so... Well, hang on. Do you want to also... Are you doing Invincible as well?
Invincible's fun. I'm having a great time.
So this is the Amazon Prime animation.
It's
Kirkman thing.
It's still a lot of fun. Yeah.
Okay, good. Glad we covered that.
Like,
No, it's fine. It's fine. It was my stupid fault for bringing it up.
Adult orientated comic book movie, comic book fair. Like,
Yeah.
it's animated really well.
You better believe it's adult animated. I saw penises in the last episode.
Pete Davidson was in it.
He wasn't animated though. That was the weird
No.
thing. Live action. It was like the Tom and Jerry thing, but in reverse.
But yeah, I'm having a lot of fun with it. I think, like, I heard somebody say they didn't like the last episode. I think it's actually a good episode in terms of kind of like really slowing things down because it's been going quite quick.
Sure. You got to have peaks and troughs. You got
to take a breath.
You can't go 100 miles an hour for 10 days.
But it's working really
I mean,
well.
you can if you got enough fuel. And also, you got someone to take over driving when you get sleepy. Okay, shall we do it?
Should we?
Special segment.
Yep.
I gotta work myself up for this sometimes. Okay, so returning segment. Everyone's favourite because it's got its own jingle. Falcon, watch! Okay, I'm embarrassed every time I do it. I'm not going to make eye contact with you next time because that was weird.
You stared into my soul.
Tell us about The Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
We've had
two more episodes.
4 and 5.
Ooh, we're close to the end.
Yeah, one more to go.
But remember, it's the Falcons we made along the way.
So episode 4 was a bit more... It was very much Marvel. But then there's a moment right at the end that is really good. Like, it's a really good kind of... It was the first time in the series really it's ended an episode where you go, oh, I wonder what's going to happen because of that.
And we won't be spoiling it here.
No, but like if you've been watching it, you know the moment. But if you haven't, then it's a huge kind of moment for a certain character. And then episode 5 was almost a bit like Invincible in a way, one of those slowing down episodes where it starts kind of with a big kind of scene where there's a fight, and then it comes down to just being kind of like a bit more introspective. And in a way, I really like that because it's what I wanted the series to be. So when we spoke about this series, episode 1 ended up being something that was a lot more character driven than what I thought it would be.
Yes.
And episode 5 does that, where it kind of utilizes the fact that Sam is somebody who's dealt with trauma before and used to help kind of people who've come from military backgrounds kind of reassociate themselves into life. And they use that kind of characteristics about him. You get more insight into kind of Bucky and how he's dealing with situations and actually has them have a conversation. And I think some people will go, oh, this is really kind of slow and I don't understand. But you've got to have these moments. And this is what these series are for. They're to allow us to have insights into these characters. Allows us to deal with themes that maybe the series wouldn't have dealt with, like a film wouldn't have dealt with. Like the whole stuff with Isaiah Bradley, who's this super soldier who was kind of hidden away. His story is really important and really interesting to tell. And this episode does that really well. And I think you have to have episodes like this. And I really like the fact that this series is allowing itself to do it. And I was speaking to your brother about this yesterday. But I actually think WandaVision did a really good job of week to week, kept me guessing, and kind of was a water cooler television show. Where it's like, oh, what's going to happen now? What's happening next? As a whole, I think I'm enjoying Falcon and Winter Soldier more because I think it's a bit more complete. And it is very Marvel. It's very much kind of like, it's not doing anything that, it's not like going, oh, this is like a kooky sci-fi TV show like WandaVision or anything like that. It is, a couple of soldier boys kind of dealing with their emotions.
Soldier Boy?
Yes, they are. Soldier Boy Talon. But I'm really liking that.
Yeah.
It's got a lot to do in its last episode.
Yeah.
Like, there is a lot to do. And I don't
Secret
know...
episodes.
I don't know if it will stick the landing. Falcon style, because he flies.
Good.
But if it does, great.
Yeah.
And I think that certain elements will stick. I think the certain elements will be left behind and won't work as well. Yeah. In the same way, kind of WandaVision, you kind of went, oh, this doesn't work. Important thing is, Wyatt Russell is incredible in this, though. He's playing his role incredibly well. I'm really enjoying it. Like I say, I think I'm actually enjoying it more than WandaVision, which is what I didn't expect to do. And I think it's because of these moments that allow the drama to exist.
Sure. Okay. So that is Disney Plus's The Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
I guess we will wrap that up on the next news and reviews.
Yes.
Actual reviews.
Yes. Where do you want to start?
Hey, the world's our oyster. Start with Bad Trip.
Okay.
You said this was going to be a short review.
Yes. So Bad Trip is it's a movie by Eric Andre, who is an American comedian. It's basically a prank show turned story kind of adventure. It's one of those, but it's part scripted, part real life pranks, and it's about a guy who reconnects with somebody he went to school with, who invites him to their art gallery in New York, and then him and his friend steal a car from his friend's sister, who's in jail, and drive it across the country. And along the way, they do a load of pranks with people in real life, and you get some real interactions. Tiffany Haddish plays the sister as this kind of like woman who's on a revenge mission to try and find her brother. And she just kind of rolls around the place, kind of being like, I'm going to kill him. Really good, kind of like really scary. I had a lot of fun. Like, it's one of those that I think the pranks are funny if you're into that. Like, it's kind of that Jackass style humour but it's not kind of like, oh, I'm doing this to hurt myself, but it's more kind of, I want to see what the people's interactions are with this situation. And he does a very good job of using real people's interactions and real people's responses to his actions to guide where the story goes. So he sits down next to some random guy and he explains, I met this woman and I think she's the love of my life and I want to go to New York to see her. And this guy gives this kind of really kind of eloquent answer to him. Yeah. And it's just some guy just answering. But then also it does veer into the ridiculous, and sometimes you're like, I don't even understand how this can be real, because surely somebody would notice it's fake. It's one of those that, like, if you're into that kind of humour, it really works. It doesn't do anything special, it doesn't do anything new, but it is fun. And I found myself laughing a lot during it, of just kind of like, this is silly, like, this is childish, but also I kind of enjoy it. And Eric Andre is very good at just being somebody who just puts himself out there and goes, I'm just going to do this. Yeah. It won't be for everyone. Like, there are a lot of people who watch it and go, this isn't funny, or it is childish, or isn't for me, it's too pure, or it's too kind of disgusting, or whatever. I think if you liked Jackass and that kind of stuff, it's that, but it's more kind of also, it's kind of like Jackass meets, Trigger Happy TV, like Impractical Jokers kind of stuff. I really enjoyed it. I'd recommend it. It's on Netflix. It's something that you can easily just pop on, and it's like an hour and a half. And for me, I was like, I kind of like just having fun.
Okay. So let's have a look. So next up then I'll do The Power, which is on Shudder. So this is a sort of period British horror film set during the rolling blackouts of the 1970s during the miners' strikes. So young nurse, trainee nurse, is starting in a hospital. It's her first day, and she sort of gets assigned to stay overnight, which she isn't meant to. And clearly she's not okay with darkness. There's something in it that links back to a horrific event from her past that gets triggered whenever darkness is around her. And sure enough, a hospital, labyrinthine as they are, in the dead of night with no power and no lighting, then becomes a sort of, a living nightmare for her. It's an interesting film. I think it really gets a lot right. So this is written and directed by Karina Faith. And I think it manages to sort of toe that line of sort of haunted house style approach to a hospital, which isn't necessarily new. You've seen it in a lot of other films. But by also really, I think, really adeptly at handling this sort of traumatic past that this woman's gone through. There is something to be said for the way that that's been combined with this haunted house stuff. And I think it's a film that succeeds. I don't think it's anything necessarily groundbreaking or particularly revolutionary, but what I think it does well, it is all the stuff it needs to do in order to stand out as being a pretty, I would say, if you're a horror fan, you'll probably like this.
Yeah.
If you're someone who maybe has seen a couple of haunted housey type movies and going, this kind of thing, I think it kind of it gets the job done. I think I would say I would recommend it. I think it's better than a That'll Do Pig. Because I think realistically, if I were to put if I was to put this in a sort of star rating. Not that we ever do them, but it's that kind of thing where you're going, well, it's more 3.5 than it is a 3.
Yeah.
So you would say that pushes it into, 2.5 would surely be a That'll Do Pig. Whereas I think even if you get to a 3, sometimes that'll be a would recommend. It's available on Shudder. So that's in the US, here, Ireland, Australia, New Zealand. But I think it gets the job done really well. I think Rose Williams is great in the central role. There are some sort of possession scenes within it that are really well played.
Yeah.
I really like them. Liked is a, comparative, but, I think they really worked. And sort of reminded me of some of the stuff that I really liked about Saint Maud last year with some of those scenes. It is available on Shudder. Check it out. That is The Power. Right, Love and Monsters.
So this actually kind of parallels Bad Trip in a way, because the story's kind of similar.
Yeah.
So Love and Monsters is a film that's been in development for a long time. It started in like 2013.
About 10 years, right?
Yeah. And it's been one of those where they had the idea and it took ages before Dylan O'Brien came on board as Joel, the protagonist. And then it kind of just started falling into place after that. So the story follows Joel, and basically we're in a world where basically a giant asteroid was coming to Earth. And the Earth fired a load of rockets at it and destroyed the asteroid. But the bad part was then all of the radiation fell down to Earth, and it turned all creatures on Earth into these giant monstrosities, which then kind of took over the Earth and basically wiped it out. And all the giant ones are now dead, but there's still a load of these monsters that live in this world that have made it so that people can't live on the surface. Instead, everyone lives in bunkers. At this time, so we're now 7 years into that period of time. At the time when it happened, Joel was just getting together with a girl called Amy, who's played by Jessica Henwick. And they were split up at the time because she went back to her family, he went back to his, and they ended up in different bunkers and split up. And they finally gained contact over the radio. And Joel is somebody who basically isn't trusted to do anything within his colony. And he's kind of like this guy who just freezes up. He can't do any of the fighting or anything like that if these creatures attack. And decides one day that everyone is pairing up and he had this one chance of love. He met this woman who he absolutely adores, and even after 7 years, can't stop thinking about her, talks to her regularly over the radio, and decides to be spontaneous and be like, well, if I'm going to die at the end of the world, let me at least die either trying to be with the person I love or with them, and decides to make this perilous journey for like 80 miles to go across the land where all these monsters exist to find her. That's your basic setup. He meets this dog along the way who becomes his friend, meets Michael Rooker, and has some moments with them. It's quite an enjoyable adventure story. Like it's quite it's kind of like this teen romance kind of adventure story where these monster designs are good. They're a little bit cartoonish, and they don't seem real, but also are very well presented. Like visually, they are very interesting. They are very kind of grotesque at times, and are very well together. And they don't seem real within this world at times, but at the same time, it's really kind of amazing that something like this kind of film, I don't know what its budget was, but something like this looks really well put together. I think Dylan O'Brien is a really engaging lead. There's a lot of the time when it's just him, and there are some really nice heartfelt moments, and moments of like where Joel has serious self-doubt about himself and what he's doing and what the world is like, and it's kind of experiencing this adventure of this person just trying to get to do something for once in his life that is his own, on his own volition. And I think Dylan O'Brien is really good at that. Like, he's very good at putting that across. And in his kind of adventurous moments, he's good. And, he was in, the Maze Run and stuff like that. So he can kind of pull that stuff off. But he also deals with depth. The problem with this film is there is like a third act wrinkle in it that I thought was really clever. And I thought it was really enjoyable the way that it's done. It does something, and I won't spoil it because I think it's it is. So this film's enjoyable, and I think it probably straddles once again between That'll Do Pig and would recommend.
Right.
I think
seems to have overwhelmingly positive reviews from everyone.
There is stuff really enjoy. My problem is, and I think this might be a personal problem, it does something in the third act that I go, that's really cool, a really neat idea, and something I find really interesting. And at the end, it undermines itself in like the last couple of moments by basically making it a moot point. And I really wish it stuck with its convictions, because I think it's a really interesting way to take a story like this, because it took it to a thing that I haven't really seen that often. And I really wish it had done that. But saying that, did I enjoy the adventure? Did I enjoy the journey? Yes, I did. And I think actually it's one of the better versions of this style of films. And I think it does rest heavily on the fact that you've got a very engaging and charismatic lead at the heart of that. And I do think that he carries a lot of this film. Because I think at times it is kind of, here's an event, here's an event, here's an event, here's an event. It's kind of just like, oh, here's just a catalogue of moments for you to enjoy.
Just here's a bunch of things happening in succession.
But you have to have somebody who can kind of at least keep you engaged in going along that journey, and I think he has that. So actually, speaking about it, I probably would recommend. Like, I think I'm talking positively enough about it. I just wish it had stuck to its guns a little bit. And I don't... The thing is, the moment that happens, I don't think whether that was ever the intention for it to be that sort of thing. And then they changed it. But you kind of say this is a thing, and then don't do it. I'm speaking around something, but
so budget of 30 million to answer a previous question,
which is incredible.
Which for a sort of mid-range budget, I mean, to be nominated for an Oscar for your visual effects, that's pretty good. And will obviously benefits from the fact that no Marvel movies came out last year, so you don't have that to contend with. But it means it kind of opens it up to things like this getting in there and getting some recognition for the work they do.
Like,
right?
Look at, even if you don't watch the film, like you yourself.
Well, I'll see it in the Oscars next week.
Even if you don't watch the film, look at some of the monster design, because it is very interesting stuff to look at.
So this one was a Paramount movie that got sold last year, I think.
One of those.
Paramount. So in August 2020, Paramount announced that. So it's not technically been sold. So the film was released on video on demand in the United States in October last year.
Because I wanted to watch it last year, and I've been waiting to kind of hear it come out.
And then, at that point, they then changed the film's title to Love and Monsters from Monster Problems. Yeah, better title. So then it also played in theatres in October, was then released on VOD at the same time. Netflix have got the international rights for distribution. So it's still a Paramount Picture thing, but they actually managed to release it properly. But, it was something that I'd heard positive stuff about. So I think, people will be wanting to see that. And Netflix are promoting it pretty heavily on the homepage. So I think that's something that they are clearly going, well, this is going to be something that should hit well. Right, couple of things here. Oh, well, first of all, I'll just mention now, I won't review it again because I did it 6 weeks ago. Black Bear is now out on VOD. I would recommend it. It is great, and I really love it, and it's one of my favourite performances of the year from Aubrey Plaza. So that is available now on digital platforms in the UK. It was out already in the States. I caught up with Palm Springs, which you reviewed last year. It's now out on Amazon Prime here. So this is the sci-fi rom-com time loop movie with Andy Samberg and Kristen Milioti. So I won't give it a full review, seeing as you did last year. But I really, I think Kristen Milioti's really engaging in this. I think she's the star of the show, and her performance is really good. I think it does something with the time loop conversation, and certainly around sort of relationships and love and friendships within time loops. And it's a different conversation than the one that you've seen elsewhere. So I think that's good, because it at least does something different with it. Because it doesn't just feel like it's another sort of Groundhog Day movie. It feels like, oh, okay, this is also having another conversation about it. I think, for me, definitely it worked more because we're in this lockdown state. So I wonder if it's a case of there's this fortuitous circumstance where this resonates more because of the situation that the world has been in for a year now, that you kind of feel like the constant monotony of the repeated cycle of days actually feeds into something you've been feeling for a year. So I think that's kind of interesting in that mirrors through, and I think makes the film work in a way that if it wasn't for this, I don't think that would resonate with me in the same way. Yeah. So weirdly, I think it's benefited from COVID in a very strange way. I think it's a shame that Kristen Milioti's not been talked about more from this, because her performance blows everything out of the water in this movie. I think it's really good. But yeah, so that's available on, what did I say? Amazon Prime.
I still, I'm going to watch it again soon. I watched it last year, really enjoyed it. And would wholeheartedly recommend it. If you've got Amazon Prime, watch it.
What are we on to now? Let's do Promising Young Woman next.
Okay.
So, Promising Young Woman, nominated for, 5 Oscars, I think. This is directed and written by Emerald Fennell and stars Carey Mulligan in the central role. Released in the States last year, and then has just been released on Sky Cinema and Now TV here. So, comedy thriller film is what they're labelling it as, and I think that kind of sums it up, basically. And Carey Mulligan stars as Cassie, who is this woman who is on this sort of revenge tour on behalf of a friend. I'm trying to basically talk around some stuff and make sure that I don't necessarily give any plot points away. But a woman who is... What?
So
I'm trying to work out.
She's a woman who finds men who are willing to take advantage of women who are in states that are delicate, kind of vulnerable states, and willing to take advantage of them for their own gains at that point. You know, on a night out, they might pick them up and take them home. She pretends to be in that circumstance to then kind of hoist upon them the problems with what they're doing in more outlandish ways. And to sometimes the detriment of our own health.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably it.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I mean, this is a relatively, it's a relatively well-publicised movie in terms of, I think a lot of people are having a lot of different conversations about it at the moment. So, if you want to know more than that before you see it, then there's plenty of it out there. But I think for the sake of not wanting to sort of ruin anything in the film, it's best that we don't get into any actual plot details here. I think Carey Mulligan's performance in this is really incredible. I mean, she's been nominated for best leading actress, but I mean, she's really, really good. Like, to the point where it is her film more than. It kind of feels like it's her film more than it's Emerald Fennell's film, even though she wrote and directed it. But it kind of feels like that performance is so dynamic and so sort of standout that you can't help but think, like, that's the reason this works in the way that it does. We were talking yesterday and kind of came up that it's a slightly uneven film in terms of some of the script.
Yeah, it's very, for me, I think it's
a
very
slow starter.
It's very clunky for a good chunk of the film. Like, I think you've always said, like, he found like the first 10 minutes or so.
Yeah, it's like 15 to 20, I think.
I found the first like half hour, 40 minutes, like really clunky. I felt the script was very uneven, and the way it was paced seemed such. Back end of the film is really well put together. Like that kind of, it all kind of irons out towards the end. Like, it almost kind of like the first part of it is finding its feet, and the second part of it for me is it kind of being like, oh, we are a fully formed film here, and you're kind of having a conversation that's really important, and really interesting, and a really interesting way of putting it across. It's having a conversation about the place of males within society, and the idea of, I'm a good guy, but are you also responsible for the deeds of your past? Like, having that conversation and being able to do it incredibly well is a testament to how well this film does. I think you're right, there are some really great performances in this. Carey Mulligan is great. I think Bo Burnham is really good in this. And also, it's really nice to see Laverne Cox. Yeah. Because I really like her as a performer. But yeah, I think overall, I really enjoy this. And I think one of the things we spoke about was it's a film with a style. Yeah. And it's unashamed to be in that style.
Yeah, and I think particularly with regards to, it's a very visually, it knows what it wants to do, and it's all blues and pinks, and it's very sort of bright and brash colours, and I think that really works. I've actually cooled on it a little bit since last night when we watched it, and I think I know why I've cooled on it, and I can't work out if that's just like a personal thing, or maybe I need to rewatch it and just see if that is still an issue. But I think so we talked about the unevenness of the script. I think potentially it's just a film that kind of feels like at some points there are messages that are being put across that kind of feel that they're at odds with each other within the film to a point. It's something that I'll probably end up rewatching over the course of the year. I'm not going to say by the Oscars or anything because that's next week. But yeah, certainly by the time we do our year in review, it's still, I think it's still great. I think there's still a lot to admire in here, not least of which is that central performance, which I think is so incredible. But yeah, I think visually really interesting and knows what it's about and knows what it's wanting to do. And I think that's kind of when the direction of the film is at its best, I think that's what it's doing, is it's creating these images within the film that you can sort of use as snapshots, and they really work. Yeah, I mean, I would recommend it. Like we said, it's on Now TV, Sky Cinema in the UK. It's available, I think, as a rental or VOD in the States. Not sure about internationally, but I'm sure you can find it. But
yeah, would recommend. And like I said, I think that kind of sums up my feeling on it all. Like, I I really like the film. I think it's great, but I do think it's clunky and uneven. But that doesn't take away the fact that it's a really great performance in there.
Yeah. Right, next one. Last one. Final film this week.
Sound of Metal.
Sound of Metal. So this is available in the UK on Amazon Prime. In fact, maybe everywhere on Amazon Prime. But this is Darius Marder's film starring Riz Ahmed as Ruben, who's a drummer in a metal band with his girlfriend, who starts to experience hearing loss and is basically advised by a doctor, you need to eliminate all exposure to loud noises immediately because what you've lost isn't going to come back, and anything that you now experience is only going to damage you further. And then through his sponsor, he gets put in touch with a sort of retreat or a community run by Joe, who's a recovering alcoholic, but also a deaf person who is running this organization and this program, and is trying to give Ruben an opportunity to rehabilitate himself and to come to terms with his deafness. Yes. I love this film. I think it's really, really. I mean, so there was times in the sort of opening half an hour where I was sort of just like there were tears staying in my eye. Like they weren't like dropping down my face, but my eyes were just wet with tears for about 30 minutes. And then when he arrives at the program, I mean, Paul Raci is I think just is that emotional crux of this film where you just go, the scenes between him and Riz Ahmed are just incredible. Yeah. And I think just it's a film that feels like it's exploring all the avenues that cinema should explore, because not only is the sound design really incredible and really interesting in the way they've put it all together, but also I think it's a really nice looking film. The performances are great. It feels very small, but at the same time about something that is bigger than everything. And I think is really beautiful. I think it really, and it's really kind of, it's really special to see a film that actively promotes deaf culture and the deaf community in a way that isn't.
It sees it as a positive.
Yeah, well, it's one that is coming from this aspect of we're approaching this in the way that the deaf community approaches being deaf, which is we're not disabled because we can't hear you. You're disabled because you can't speak sign language. So if you can't speak our language, how are we the disabled ones here? And I think that's an important point that's kind of covered within this film and is brought up. I mean, I could rave about this film all week. This is just really, really good, and I love it. You talk.
I really like it. I think you're right. I think there's some really powerfully emotional stuff, especially at the start. Much like you, I was basically thoroughly moved, especially stuff between Riz Ahmed and Olivia Cook.
Yeah,
I want to say, who plays his partner and bandmate. Like they have some really great stuff. I think Riz Ahmed's performance is one of the best I've seen this year, if not the best. And I'm really sad that he's not going to win the Oscar for it. I think he should. And I don't think he will. I think the problem is Best Actor is nailed on for Chadwick Boseman. But Riz Ahmed's performance is incredible in this. Paul Raci is really good. And like you say, the whole kind of technical aspects of this film is a film that's not afraid to use silence. It's not afraid to kind of confuse you with sound, to kind of really give you an indication of how this feels. Using these moments where, it really kind of allows you as an audience member to step in the shoes of what it must feel like to have that kind of loss and kind of really come to terms with it yourself as an audience as the character comes to terms with it on screen. For it to do that, it has to do it well, and it has to do it kind of perfectly, and it does. It's well shot, it's well performed, it's well, like, technically it's really well put together. It's just a really, really solid film. And it knows what it wants to do, and it does it well. And really allows you to feel that Ruben comes on a journey that you can really believe in.
Yeah. Yeah, I really love it. I've listened to a few interviews with Riz Ahmed about it, and the way he speaks about his experience of actually making the film is really interesting, and sort of the way in which he's now engaged with deaf culture in a way that he didn't previously, and in a way that sort of reflects the fact that he's gone on this journey within the film, but also during the making of the film clearly was sort of encouraged. And I think it seems like a lot of that seems to be down to Paul Raci, who's the hearing son of deaf parents, but has lived within deaf culture and has, the film, he said that the film almost felt sort of semi-autobiographical in the sense that he also was a Vietnam vet, and he's gone through these experiences that Joe went through, and it kind of feels like there is an authenticity in those performances, in all the performances in this film, that you don't really get. You recognize it when you see it, but it doesn't happen all that often. And when it does, it's really great. And I think I'll be hard pressed to find a better film than this year.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's currently top of my pile.
Yeah.
And because I was just incredibly impressed by all of the aspects of this film.
Yeah. It's a would recommend. It's on Amazon Prime, and it's just great.
It's really good, guys.
So that's it for this week for reviews. We will be next week when.
So it'll be
a Monday release.
Yes.
Just to let you know now, because next week is Hollywood's biggest night, and therefore Dinosaur Man's biggest night. We're going to watch the Oscars. We're going to do our sort of live, not quite live, but, a live watch along that then gets edited down by me the next day on 3 hours sleep and is, at times, unlistenable, I imagine.
Everyone loves it.
Oh, yeah.
Great time.
They're always our most listened to episodes.
But yeah, so that will be next week. Be a lot of fun. Thank you for joining us this week.
You're making promises. I don't know if we can make it a lot of fun. It might be bad. It
might be terrible.
What if the Oscars are the worst?
What if they are?
They've been pretty bad recently.
But yeah.
Yes.
Please do subscribe to us wherever you listen to your podcasts. Or on YouTube, or find us on Twitch at Dinosaur Man Pod. I will do some more twitching, I promise.
Or on Twitter at DinosaurMan15.
Yes, start a conversation with us there.
What?
Start a conversation with us on Twitter.
Oh, I thought you said our conversation will stare.
Our conversation will stare.
You directly into your soul.
We are the men who stare at goats and Twitter.
Did you ever see that film?
No.
Okay. As always, Johnny's did the theme song. Of course you didn't see the men who stare at goats.
This time it was performed by Riz Ahmed.
Okay, good. And the other thing I was going to say was that you were the host, and that's good. You've done a good job.
You were also the host.
You know
and
what?
That was even better.
You know what? I think for the first time ever, co-host.
Co-host. And until next time.
With the co-most.
Until next time, guys.
I don't have anything funny to say here.
What is inflation?
I did not approve this character. Bye, guys. See you next Monday.